Hello, patrons. Tim will be with us shortly. He's just sorting out his second cover of the day. Well, I say of the day. Probably not of the day. Second cover since we started watching this episode, anyway. Yeah. So, just you and me. You and I. Here he is. There's Tim Bellini. There's Timbo.
Yo.
Yobo. Say hello to the patrons.
Yeah, patrons.
See? You can see, this is why you tune into Patreon for these exclusive moments of hellos and coffee making. Not so much the coffee making as the coffee arriving to be drank when it's cooled down a bit.
The arrival of the coffee.
Yeah, you're a black coffee drinker as well, aren't you?
I am a black coffee drinker, yes.
Yeah. So, like myself, you have to wait for it to cool down a bit. Yeah. I made my sister one earlier, and it's just steaming. So I was like, there you go. She goes, oh, good, I'll drink that in half an hour. Like, yeah, a bit too cold right now.
I'll give it 5 minutes to brew before I plunge it anyway. So.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do the YouTube intro
this week, isn't it?
It is. We'll do the
good. I made a right old fanny of it last time.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, cool. So let's do the YouTube. What's it? Hello.
Oh, all right. Oh, I'll mute me.
Brilliant. Okay,
that's got it.
So, hello, YouTubers and Spotifyers. Welcome back to the Replimat. We have been away for a couple of weeks due to life and work and life, I guess. As always, I am Andy, and up there we have
Tim, me. Hello.
Today we are discussing, or will be discussing shortly, episode 16 of season 2 of Deep Space Nine, Shadowplay, which was first transmitted on the 21st of February 1994, written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe, and directed by Robert Shearer, or the Roberts in the House. And according to the Netflix, in the Gamma Quadrant, Dax and Odo detect an unusual particle field, an Omicron particle field apparently, on the surface of an unexplored planet, which shockingly isn't inaccurate.
No.
So, I'm sure we're going to get to episodes soon again where you're like, what has that got to do with the episode? Because Netflix is good like that. I read one the other day. Oh, what was it? What's Netflix? I think it's Amazon, actually, which was some film or documentary or whatever. And literally what it says is this amazing documentary by so-and-so filmmaker. I'm like, well, that told me absolutely nothing about it at all. So unless you know this filmmaker, I guess I'm not actually that interested. Thanks.
Yeah.
At least, blurbs are useful too. Imagine having a book and it just said at the back by the writer of so-and-so. It's like, okay, cool.
The new
Thank
book.
you.
The new book by, yeah.
So, you want to know what it's about? You can buy it.
Throw me a frickin' bone here.
Yeah, come on, man. Anyway, Tim.
Andy.
How was your... We'll try and keep this brief, patrons, but we've got, by Tim's reckon, at least an hour.
At least an hour, yeah.
So that's fine. Plenty of time for us to waffle on then and to trim down for you YouTubers and Spotifyers. Tim, how's your 2 weeks been?
My 2 weeks?
Day by day account, please.
How much life can I possibly have squeezed into the last 2 weeks?
I'm guessing because we've been off camera for 2 weeks, that suggests that something's happened other than just work.
Well, yes. So but like you said, it's life. It's life. It's just a series of unfortunate events, sort of thing. Yeah. Just one thing after another. Just these things happen and they crop up. not always in my control, sometimes out of my control, but generally nothing disastrous, just stuff. And so, last couple of weeks, largely the same as we've had before, just a lot of work and so forth. I have, yes, finished a writing project, which is, or finished it to a point where it can be read and edited, which. And then after that, I thought, well, I need a little, need a few days to just kind of relax and focus on something else, and which I did, and then kind of work got in the way again. So I've actually just I've not done any writing over the past week at all, which is now getting to the point where I'm thinking, okay, I need to crack on because I've got other stuff, I've got editing and things to do as well. So generally, just kind of like life. And then the weekend we went to Cornwall to visit a family who are staying in Cornwall. They don't live there. So that's why it's Monday today, and that was over the weekend. So that was nice. It was very pleasant. Lots of rain, pretty countryside, and so forth. But yeah, so nothing hugely exciting. In the background, I've just been watching the new Doctor Who specials, which we don't talk about on this podcast.
Let's not do that. We can do our if we must. We can share our thoughts, which we've just done off camera, technically not off camera, but off recorded camera.
Yes.
We can do that when we return to Doctor Who in 2 weeks for the viewers.
Yes.
We'll probably done it before then, because obviously in 2 weeks, it's actually Christmas Day.
It is, isn't it? Yes, 2 weeks today.
So we'll have it recorded before then.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll discuss that.
I might get into trouble if I try and do one of these on Christmas Day. So, of course, there'll be another episode of Doctor Who for us to discuss as well.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
That was that's it. I've still not watched any more Clone Wars. I kind of got out of the habit of that just with the way that my day was structured. So I need to work on that again. I've started to read. I started my annual reread of Dickens' Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So I've read the first couple of sections, and I'm enjoying that immensely, which is probably why I can get away with reading it each Christmas.
It's been going on for enjoy
12 years. So, that's all good. Prop. Okay. That's been my fortnight in a nutshell, I suppose.
Or nutcase, as I keep saying.
How about you, Andy?
Not too dissimilar to yourself. I have not been to Cornwall, however. Mostly work because, although this peak has been quite weird. Last year was busy. This year we've had a few not as busy days. We've actually finished at like 9, half 8 at one point, so that was kind of nice. But still, for me, majority 10-hour days because I get an early 12 and whatnot. Outside of work, on my time off, usually on my days off because I try to just do nothing. It doesn't always work out. I finished, forget if I mentioned, I was watching The Fall. It's Gillian Anderson and Jamie, what's his face, Dornan, I believe his name is. It's
don't remember that.
It's a crime thing. He's a serial killer, and she's the head superintendent who's hunting him down. Very good, very, very, very addictive viewing actually, and Gillian Anderson is fantastic in it. So I finished watching that, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I need more Gillian Anderson. But Sex Education, I did start watching that, but by season 2, I was kind of like, I'm kind of bored of it. She's great in it, but I was kind of bored of it. So I thought, you know what I need to get back to? Because I was on season 2, so I thought, right, let's get back to prop number 1.
Ah, right.
For
Gillian Anderson fix.
That would be the X-Files. I've reached season 2. I seem to recall I was on to where I don't know if you've watched it or ever.
I haven't, and I the problem with it is, and I won't go into this into too much detail, but it came out at a time when I was I think I was studying for A-levels.
Right.
Or possibly in my A-levels the second time around. And I remember looking at it and thinking, this looks like a show that I could really fall in love with.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't got time to fall in love with the show now because I need to stay focused on what I'm doing. So I didn't watch it, and I never got to a point where I went back and kind of caught up and
there are no seasons, so
dipped in. So yeah, it's one of those things I thought at some point I really need to pick up.
Well, it's on Disney
or whatever, or watch it on streaming, or whatever, and from the start and make my way through it. So
well, yeah. So I started watching it on Disney. It was on the Adult Stars, or whatever it's called, and I was on season 2, and I seem to recall being on a bit where Dana Scully went missing. Dana Scully, sorry, because it's American. So I thought, right, now because I discontinued my sub to Disney because I'm just not really watching it anymore. So I think, what's the point keeping it, right? But then I'm like, I want to get back to that. So I thought, that means I have to buy the box set. Which, fair dues, 11 seasons for 50 quid is not a bad deal at all.
Oh, no, that's good.
Really, really good deal. So I thought, yeah, I'll do that. On DVD, obviously the Blu-ray was like 100. I'm like, not this time of year, mate. So I could just about make the DVD purchase. Of course, then I found the right disc. Right, this is the episodes where she's missing. So I'll start the episode 8, season 2. So not even halfway. And I'm watching. I'm literally every episode of this disc. I'm like, no, I've seen this. I've seen this one. No, I've seen this one too. So clearly I was a bit further than I realised. I think I watched one last night, and I'm like, I'm not sure if it's familiar or if it's just the idea is familiar, because it's quite a generic sci-fi kind of idea. So I'm like, I don't know if it's just a similar story to I've seen, but I'm sure I'll get to an episode soon where I'll be like, oh yeah, I definitely don't remember this. So that's quite fun. So I'm on that now.
Okay.
Obviously, it's on a sale block, obviously, because that's a lot of episodes still. I'm only on 2, whatever it is, and there's 6, 9 something. So I've still got some ways to go.
Yeah.
Reading wise, I have tried to get into. I was reading that cult book, as you know, but because it's non-fiction, it's something you can dip into more. I'm just not in the mood to get back to June or the other books that I'm still reading. So I thought I need a nice crime book. So I thought I'd read that new Steve Kavanaugh book, and yeah, since he done, I think I mentioned his standalone novel where it's supposed to be that unreliable narrator, and the writer was just awful, and he just hasn't seemed to recover from that. So I was reading his new book, and I'm like, oh, I mean, the story's interesting, but the grammar and just really bad prose, I'm like, oh dear, the cracks are starting to show now. It's almost like he's not bothering. So I thought, I'll leave that and get back to it when I'm in a less critical mood, I guess. So I thought, a bit like yourself, because you just reminded me, I thought, I'm going to try again, because I do this every year. I'm going to try to read this book for Christmas, which is The Santa Claus Murders, or Murder, for Christmas, right? It's a book written in, when was this written? In the 1930s anyway, so we're talking old school crime. You know, we're talking pre-Agatha Christie, I think.
I was going to Agatha Christie period, I was going to say, but yeah.
And once again, I just couldn't get past chapter 1. So that was my annual attempt. Good. I'm sure it's good. It's just maybe it's just too old school in the plotting and the writing, and just it doesn't involve you straight away, which to me you kind of need to be. So I thought, you know what? You may recall I mentioned a couple of weeks ago I picked up this book by John Grisham, The Whistler.
Yes, I do remember you.
Because I remember mentioning I've never really read his stuff, but
you wanted to Grisham.
Yeah. And so I started this the other day, and actually I'm hooked right into it. So I'm like, aha.
Page turner, right?
Aha. So that's what I'm now reading.
Good.
I'm also, since we do occasionally mention Doctor Who, I decided I need to get back to Dark Eyes, because that's where I was up to, the Dark Eyes Paul McGann series, which is Dark Eyes 3, so it's the third post-Lucy Miller stuff. So I started listening to the first episode, and I'm thinking, I I can't remember what happened in series 2. I'm sure I listened to it, but I do not remember anything about it. So I am now back on Dark Eyes 2.
Right.
I'm halfway through the Right Room one, which has the Vians, whatever they call themselves in it, which are another Big Finish monster that I use quite frequently. And I'm guessing
the Virons or something, isn't it?
Variant, Vera, whatever. But I'm getting a sense that there's sort of lots of backstory, so I'm listening thinking, I'm sure I'm missing something here. Which does seem to be a common Big Finish problem when they keep returning their own creations. They seem to do them very out of order in terms of documents, which does make it a bit like, well, that means I've got to listen to and buy this, and which I get. They're a company, they've got to, market and buy and sell their stuff. But as a listener, I was like, I don't have time to listen to everything. It's TV. It's different because obviously you pay the license and you can watch whatever, but when it's stuff that you purchase separately, it's an investment to make and both time and money. So
I listened to Dark Eyes some years back. I remember enjoying it.
First one was very good. I remember.
I don't remember much about. Then I listened to Doom Coalition afterwards, and Doom Coalition was brilliant. But I haven't then listened to. I think because there was a second Doom Coalition, and then something else.
I finished 3 of them.
Stranded and I haven't. I just
that's what it is. I think it's 3 Doom Coalition and 3 Ravenous.
That's it, Ravenous.
And then Stranded.
And I haven't listened to anything after the first series of Doom Coalition, which was great. So it's not because I didn't enjoy it. It's time and money at the end of the day. So there we go.
So that's cool, but that's basically it. That's pretty much all I've been doing because, as you say, work. You have very little time, so you've got to squeeze in what you can squeeze in.
Yeah, I need to start prepping for Christmas at some point as well.
Yeah,
otherwise that'll be upon us.
I've done my Christmas stuff because I don't have to buy for many people. The joy of being a single man. You don't have to buy for kids constantly. I mean, nephews and nieces. I mean, I have so many nephews and nieces everywhere. If I bought for every one of them, I'd have to start buying them like in February. Yeah. There's just so many of them. I mean, there's like 50 something of them, like nephews, nieces, great nephews, great nieces, and so on and so on. Big family. But I barely see most of them, so that saves things a lot on Christmas. Because you really don't see each other enough for it to be sort of obligatory.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Which is good financially. Otherwise, I'd be skinned. I'd literally have the whole year just buying presents for people.
Buying presents, yeah.
Come on now. I've got DVD collections and Blu-ray collections to maintain. But anyway, so let us discuss this Shadowplay, shall we?
Yes.
Tim, you may begin, obviously, because you've not seen it before.
No, I haven't. And this was so refreshing. This is I've not enjoyed an episode this much since probably since the last the Odo Kira flashback episode.
Would it be, do you think, because we've had a wee break?
I don't know. I was
literally
wondering.
just that this is just a nice?
I don't think so because there wasn't. There just. Yeah, I think it was just an excellent episode. Dax and Odo are great. Anyway, it was great just putting them in that situation because you wouldn't automatically put those two together.
Yeah, we don't see them together that often. Fair, true.
And I just it was just an interesting, gentle sort of character, also like part character study, part investigation for Odo as in his role as sort of police officer, detective, whatever. So him kind of, I suppose, sort of him in like the Holmes or Poirot role, and Dax in the kind of Watson or Hastings role to a certain extent. just that was lovely. It didn't feel unnecessarily sci-fi to me. There wasn't, although there was the conversation between Brile and Kira back on the station, where the dialogue was quite in places was quite heavily sci-fi, but for some reason it worked there. And I did wonder at that point, maybe this is because I've had a bit of a break. So, but actually, no, I think it fitted the characters and the situation, but it didn't feel forced. It felt the dialogue felt natural. So you've got the A plot, I suppose, with Odo and Dax down on the on the Omicron planet. You got the B plot, as it were, with Kira and Quark and Brile, and then a kind of almost like a C plot, but the C plot really is just kind of real life on the station, as it were, just ticking along. So it's not something. It has, I suppose, it has not necessarily a beginning, but it certainly has a middle and an end.
And it's got
but the end isn't a final end. It's a means to a further end or whatever. So yeah, and again, it didn't matter that they didn't mix or intermingle, because it was an episode that didn't need that. It was life on Deep Space Nine. So you've got an away party, you've got other stuff going on, and that just felt very. It just felt very natural.
Well, I suppose it's the first time they've really, because as you say, up until now, it's either been just one plot or an A and a B. But this, as you say, you've got the A and the B, they're kind of connected, only in so much as Odo's not there.
Yes, yeah.
But the C plot, as you say, it's just what's going on elsewhere on the station with O'Brien and Jake and Cisco and whoever else got involved. Obviously, Bashir got involved briefly in the Kira plot. But yeah, it's just, I suppose it's their first real attempt, maybe, just to do a more of a serialized story. It was just characters carrying on doing stuff, as opposed to A plot, B plot, beginning, middle, end, done. Which this show will definitely be doing way more of properly soon. But no, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's quite nice. I like the Jake plot line. Is there's no connection between it and what else is going on in the story, other than addressing something that obviously fans were wondering, and the whole have we got another Wesley situation here with Jake and his dad being Starfleet, and the whole idea that in Star Trek up to this point it seems everybody joined Starfleet, which is definitely, I would say, a criticism of modern Trek as well. Everybody, Starfleet is the ultimate goal for almost everybody, which, in New Trek we see that all the time. Characters having to join like 7 or 9 later in way down the line. Although she had no inclination to do so, certainly in the earliest episodes of Picard, suddenly for no reason, she's suddenly in Starfleet in season 2. You're like, why? That doesn't track at all with what you were setting up. Right. Same they do later in season 3 with another character who's very, very anti-Starfleet. And at the end, suddenly he's now an ensign. You're like, why? Can't you have just gone on and done what he was doing as a Doctors Without Borders kind of thing? But this is another good example of an earlier case where people would assume Jake will go on to Starfleet, because that's, of course, the end goal with anybody in the main shows of these so far, 3 series. So it's nice that we've got to the point where it's like, actually, no, let's go against that. Obviously, the writers decided, let's go against that and make it, no, he doesn't want to be Starfleet. And of course, watching it, although I'm not sure if did you think when he finally told Ben, he'd be like, yeah, that's fine, or did you think he'd be quite like, oh, disappointed?
No, I assumed he'd be fine with it, which is why when the initial reaction shot was one of it looked like Cisco was not happy, and then it was a bit of a trick in trying to trick the audience there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. No, I assumed that Cisco would be okay with it.
Well, I think Cisco's initial, at least facial reaction was purely he assumed that's what Jake would want.
Yeah.
Then split second later, he's like, actually, no. Why am I making that assumption anyway? And then, of course, he vocalizes, says, no, if you're happy doing what you want to do, then obviously that's what you should do, which is much more natural as well.
Yeah.
Why should you join Starfleet?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's kind of that's the word I think that underpins this episode for me. Is it just feels very natural. Everything that's going on, and I loved the fact that Odo was arguing for the reinstatement of the holograms and stuff at the end, because it's he's coming from that angle as well of non-humanoid life, not necessarily not necessarily life as we know it, Jim.
He's coming from it, I think, on his own experience, because obviously they raised this within the context of the story anyway, that he's a changeling who are supposedly mythical in the Gamma Quadrant, at least according to this girl they are. And of course his background is when he was in a lab, people didn't think he was alive. It took them to realize that there was a new definition of life before he started to articulate.
Yeah.
So obviously he's arguing like, well, what is this any different really? People made these assumptions about me until Dr. Mora somehow managed to bring me out of my goo. I'm going to say shell there, but more of his goo into actuality. But no, I think, it makes a lot of sense. It's a sweet little story, actually, the one on the planet. Because it's the story, although the plot is very much about the reveal that the entire little village and everybody in it, bar one, is a hologram. That's the plot. But the story is very much the friendship that Odo and this girl develops, and showing a nice, soft side to Odo that we've seen elements of in places, usually with Kira.
Yes.
But not quite like this.
No.
Which is nice. Gives him a nice new dimension to him.
It's kind of, I suppose it's presaged slightly in the scenes on the runabout before they get there, when Dax is saying about him never having
this
had
person and that person never talked about this person, and that person knows this person, and he's like,
and then just
why?
and just the whole thing about how he'd never had like a friendship with a female or whatever. Just that's.
And that is
at that point, you kind of assume, okay, this episode is going to have one of those at some point, then, because it's that just that's the. It's not that it's heavy-handed. It's just that's the way the conventions work of the of the TV episodes. So and the hologram characters, they were kind of interesting in that nice gentle way. It's nice to meet some characters, or a colony of characters or whatever who have a kind of an affable or an affability about them.
The main one, the detective, police, whatever he was. I mean, you're watching and you're like, I quite like this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if he did have his cloak on him all the time, conveniently.
And the old boy, once when he was saying, things early on about, I've never been wrong, blah blah blah. And I'm just looking around just to see if there was anyone else who was about his age. I'm not sure I spotted anyone else who was about his age. And at the time, I was thinking I think he's going to be I think he's different to the others, but it wasn't. It wasn't one of those. It wasn't a thought that kind of distracted me from what was going on, and it wasn't. When it turned out to be true, it wasn't important enough to be like a sort of punch the air. Yes, I got it right, kind of reaction, because it's not that kind of story. So it's and it's actually, when you see him standing there, it's actually really sad.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you see him there, your brain kind of fills in a lot of the gaps almost immediately. The assumptions are either that it's something he set up himself, or it's a punishment, or any number of possible scenarios there for it. And he was and again, this isn't a negative. He was like a character type. He's a face that looked vaguely familiar. I didn't recognize any of the guest actor names particularly, but he was a face that looked vaguely familiar. And what I take from that is that in a lot of American imported programs that we've seen over here over the past sort of like 30, 40 years or whatever, there's quite often this sort of generic type of an old man who's possibly dying or whatever, but there's just he's got either something he wants to achieve before he dies, or regrets, or something or other, and he just kind of sort of slotted into that kind of preconceived role. And he looked. It's possible that he's played other roles like that in other TV shows that I've seen, and so I was kind of automatically drawn to him from that as if he was kind of ticking boxes in my expectation as an audience member. And again, if that's not done in the right way, then I would find that distracting and annoying. But there was something about this episode that I just thought, no, that's really nicely done. And it could just be that the writing and the directing and the performing all came together nicely, in that episode. It could possibly be, like you said, because I've had a couple of weeks off not watching it.
In a few weeks' time, if you get to the point where like, ugh, again, then maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
we had a bad run.
It felt like this. Yeah, this has come after a particularly bad run of about half a dozen episodes or whatever. So,
ever since Second Sight, I think. Ever since Elliot's first foray into DS9, and it was just bad from there, really, wasn't it? For a while.
Which is such a shame, because up until that point, season 2 I thought was just almost perfect. So
it's the way they crumble cookies, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Kira plot? I'm still, as you know, because I've mentioned this, just like when he first couple of appearances he's had, I don't know, Bareil, I just get bored when he's on screen. You can see that the writers are trying to make, obviously what the writers are writing, and Nana is doing her best to make it lively and whatever, and he just, again, it's obviously a choice that the actors made.
But I'm assuming it must be. It can't, because he's a recurring character. It can't just be him. It's obviously something that's been agreed with the production team as well. But yes, he does. He sucks the energy out of scenes.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of flashes when they were. Sorry.
So that'll probably disappear in the mix.
When they were talking about going off to play that Holosuite game. Very suspicious. When he suddenly started getting a little bit more animated and energized, and and it lifted everything so much. And I know that they've got he's got this religious role, and he's got to be a very kind of contained, individual. But yeah, you've got scenes where he's sat opposite Kira, and she is in no way overacting at all. But Nana is it's just she's animated, she's engaging, she's it's her usual energized performance, and she's getting nothing back off the other guy at all.
That's the thing that I was going to say.
And it's that I would have years ago when I acted for a while, I would have found that quite frustrating. I think certainly. Well, there were times when that sort of thing happened. I found it very frustrating, and you wonder what you have to do to try to get any kind of performance out of the other person. Just it's a very uneven relationship.
Yeah, again, like I say, I'm assuming, again, it has to be a choice that Philip Anglum, I believe his name is, Anglum, whatever, made, because I guess he's obviously trying to play, as you say, he's playing this monk, this reserved religious character. But like he's mentioned previously, I seem to recall when they was on Bejor in the first 3 episodes, he was making some comments about he's not a typical monk. I seem to remember he was quite a rebel.
He's not really showing that, though, is he?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's like you saying this, that apparently you're not conventional and all this stuff, which is why Kira's actually fascinated by you.
Don't tell us, show us.
But we're not seeing much of it. As you say, there's a few moments, a little bit here and there. They're obviously making out of Kira that's presumably not typical monk behaviour.
Well, no, but he needs to shut the hell up when he's doing that as well. So,
well, maybe that's just how monks kiss. I've never been a monk. I don't know.
Well, no, just kiss and converse at the same time. It's something.
Kiss first.
Someone's going to get their tongue bitten if they carry on like that. You can't hold the conversation down while you're.
We've heard of bite the tongue, but usually not their tongue, your own. But the character it just doesn't work for me. I don't know. I just find him a bit dull.
It's at the moment. It feels a slightly uneven relationship between the two. Kira is kind of this giddy little girl suddenly, and he's just the Archbishop of Canterbury or something. It's just not.
I'll tell you what I do like in the Kira plot thread of this episode is it's a nice reminder, because you kind of forget sometimes that she does not like Quark.
Yeah.
Because you can easily forget that because you see them interacting in quite a lot of episodes, but not in any necessarily big way. Occasionally, you have the episode here and there, but usually it's quite fleeting and passing, trading fake insults, but not really.
Yeah, there's someone else there usually as well.
But this time you've got a few one-to-ones where you're like, oh yeah, she still don't like him as much as she didn't like him in that first episode when you don't take your hand off my, you'll never be able to use it again. And that's
a nice little reminder about how he
he's a crook.
But how he thingy bobbied with the Cardassians. He collaborated,
wasn't he? Basically,
with the Cardassians, and just nice little reminders, of that.
There's quite a lot of collaborators about it. Seems because Odo technically was, essentially, but somehow Kira's come to peace with that. Well, he was, but only in exactly the same way that he is with the Federation now, in that he's always had a very strict line about justice and right and wrong. And that's all he did. He never worked with them if it didn't, unless it was something about being illegal or unjust or whatever. Whereas Quark was always just, taking advantage of every situation.
it's also a useful pardon you. It's also a useful reminder because a lot of the recent Quark episodes have shown him in a slightly more light-hearted way, and so when Quark appears on screen, the quite often the audience is encouraged to sort of smile, or just, even if it's just a knowing smile. Oh, here he
often
goes.
there's a lot of
Here he goes again, up to his old tricks. And so it's useful just to have one of those moments now and again where someone like Kira just puts him back in his place. And also reminds the audience as well that this guy, is up to no good, and things can be serious. It's not just he's not just like a jovial crook, walking that fine line. So yeah. That's good.
I think, it's one of those episodes, shockingly, where we don't have a whole lot to say because it's just enjoyable episode.
Is it highly regarded in fandom? Do you know?
I'm not entirely.
If there is a general fan consensus on these things,
there's
probably there isn't.
Not one of those episodes that you see often mentioned in online fandom, because obviously because of what we do, the Twitter account gets a lot of for you posts, which usually Star Trek related, and this one is not one that would come up in general. It's one which is a shame because often the ones that come up obviously are the big ones, due to because again the vocal fans online are usually, not always, but more often than not, are usually the ones who are looking for the moments that please them, that cater to the fans, and often, bizarrely, they're fans that tend to be the types who are like, oh, that space battle when this happened or that happened. You're like, yeah, but that's not Star Trek. Really, Star Trek is, or at least was up until Voyager came along and screwed it all up. It was very much about the idea of utopia, peace, bettering yourself.
Yes.
It's not about the wars and the battles and stuff. I mean, the end result, sure.
That's
which, of course, is New Trek's biggest problem. They seem to forget that Star Trek's not about space battles and all this shit. That's just, that's not what it was meant to be. It's meant to be exploring and stuff. But anyway, so yeah, it's not an episode that generally you hear much mention of. But in reverse, it's not one you hear people disparaging either. So I guess it's one of those just nice episodes.
Yeah, a middling.
I imagine if you put it in conversation, I imagine most people are like, oh yeah, that's like a nice one with Odo and that kid. That's mostly what they remember about this episode.
Fair enough.
I would almost lay money that they'll forget this is the one that Jake finally makes it clear I'm not Starfleet, and they will absolutely forget Bareilles' role in this episode, which is understandable because I forgot he was in this episode too until like, oh yeah, he's come to the station. That's right, I totally forgot he was in this. He's just one of those characters. I do always remember that he's in the season finale because that's the whole thing about religion versus science. So I remember that. I mean, last season finale.
The first season finale, yes.
And I always remember that he was in the opening trilogy because of that's Kira's going off to try to discover a new side of herself because she's out of a job. So I always remember that. But there's another episode that he comes up in. I think it's this season. It might be next, but I'm pretty sure it's this season. Is it this season? Or is it next season? I can't remember now. But it's definitely an episode coming up, which I do remember, and it's called... Damn it, Life Support, I believe it's called.
Damn it, Life Support. Sounds like
Damn it,
Life Support. Like a Dr. McCoy episode.
It may possibly have not had Damn it in the title. Which I always remember that's a Bareilles episode.
Okay.
And there's another one at Hearthstone, which I'm pretty sure that's Bareilles. I think. forget now. But anyway, yeah, he's not a character that stays in the head once he's off screen. Yeah.
No.
So, but yeah, It's again, I think this is a nice episode. Ultimately, I think it's just a nice episode. It's just like refreshing. Again, is it one of those episodes that could have been shown in any Star Trek? I think the Odo stuff, yes. That could have been easily Data, for instance.
Yes, I think you're probably right there.
Indeed, actually, on this season of Star Trek as a whole, as in Next Gen Season 7, there's an episode called Thine Own Self? Or I'm thinking that's a different one. Basically, there's an episode that is not dissimilar to this, where Data is on a planet, he's lost his memories, and he meets this girl, and befriends this girl who helps him. And it's a very similar kind of, outsider, that Frankenstein kind of vibe, basically.
Yes.
That's basically what it is, isn't it?
Yes,
it befriends the monster, as it were. So yeah, I could see that this would definitely be easily transferable to TNG outside of the Kira bit.
Yeah, but usually that is not necessarily a problem. But usually that is that I would normally associate that with less
slightly negative,
less good or less successful DS9 episodes, whereas it doesn't. I don't think this loses anything.
No, I think.
And in fairness, I was thinking while we were watching it, I think this would probably work as a DS9, as a next gen.
Quite generic in that sense, yeah. But I think what makes it work is this particular chemistry with Odo and the girl. It's sufficiently different from like Data and the other girl in the other TNG episode. I'm sure it's Thine Own Self, which is nice. I mean, again, it's nice to see the softer side of Odo occasionally. Just to remind us that he's got more layers to him than this curmudgeon, grumpy. Important.
The relationship between him and Quark is great, and it's but again, it quite often lends itself to humour, and that's you kind of. I suppose you can't do it too much because otherwise it becomes everything becomes predictable, and the characters then start to become within their relationship start to become more like a sort of a caricatured double act. So it is like you say, it's good to see him. It's good to see Odo, and Quark as well, I suppose, but particularly with Odo, it's good to see him. Interacting with different characters, new characters, and there's certainly more scope with Odo for him to kind of learn or understand more about himself. You get I think, or certainly I get the impression with the Ferengi that they are that their behaviours and their sort of capacity to change is rather limited. It's a lot of what they are is set in stone, basically.
Well, according to the producer, Ira Stephen Beer, I think he's producer at this point. He's not quite showrunner yet, but he's certainly a producer.
Yes, I think he was producer.
He's a very big Ferengi man, as in he loves Ferengi, and he's always the one who's always doing new stuff with them as the series progresses. And he says he always looks at them as basically 20th century man. Capitalists, always out for a buck, and they're always corruptible. There is I can't remember if this happened already or certainly coming up, where I think it's Quark. It literally says to them, like, the reason you don't like us is because you were us. We remind you of who you used to be as a race.
Right, okay.
So they make it quite blatant, which I can see. I can see, they are this, like, not even that dark reflection of 20th century man. 21st century still, maybe a little bit, but certainly 20th century where, we had still not quite got out of our infancy in that sense, that we're still very much money, which that's still very much a thing, obviously, and quite unscrupulous in a generic sense, in the effort to get more wealth, which sadly is still a driving force of a large percentage of people.
This is true.
That's just the culture we've unfortunately become part of. So I get it. But no, I think just generally good episode.
Yeah.
Basically,
I reckon so.
bottom line of that. That's the bottom line. So next week, because I had to look it up while we was talking, while you was chatting, is Playing God.
Playing God. Oh gosh.
It's a Dax episode.
It's a Dax episode. Okay.
Primarily, obviously, there's a B plot, but
yeah. Okay. No, goodness knows. I would have. I was about to say, is this a Cisco episode? Going back to his, the way that the Bajorans looked upon him.
Of course.
But if it's a Dax episode, no, I don't know what to expect at all. So I'm look forward to that.
That'll be fun then. It's always good to be surprised.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, in that case, YouTubers and Spotifyers, for this will go live at some point. You can, of course, catch us in the usual places on social medias, or links will be in the description. Please do like and subscribe, because apparently not only does it make us look good, it somehow makes us become noticed. The more people subscribe and like the videos, then it starts to appear on the recommended what's-its. So please do like and subscribe. Share us. That sounded dodgy, but you know what I'm saying. Share us around.
Yes, we are here to be shared.
Yes, please do. Share and like. So, until next time, I have been Andy, and him up there has been...
Tim.
He has been Tim.
So,
until next time, goodbye from me.
I had to check which finger that was then. Yeah. Goodbye from me.
Well, you up there. Well, you were up there. You're up there. No, you're not. You're up there.
Right. Okay. Yes.
So, yeah, goodbye from me, and...
Goodbye from me.
Bye-bye, Duggan. What a cock-up. Oh, damn. We're so good at this. So, Patreon, just do your thing.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Bye-bye, patrons.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for popping by.
Bye-bye.
See you again.